Lovely watch, by the way.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to another episode of WatchCollective2 podcast. My name is Ahmed Gaudat. I'm your host and one of the WatchCollective2. And today I have another special guest and another watch enthusiast and brand founder. I have today Omar Chaoui from MAGANA. Hi Omar, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Thank you so much for accepting the invite.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I'm honored.
I'm really honored to have you today on the show.
The honor is all mine.
Thank you so much. And I think the right start is going to be to start with a quick brief about who's Omar and who's Omar before MAGANA's started.
Oh, same as after. Okay, so the name is Omar. I am Moroccan, born and raised, educated. I come from a very average middle-class background. Grew up in Casablanca, and I studied tourism and hospitality management in Tangiers, Morocco. And when I was 22, I was offered my first job by my dear mama, who had moved to Dubai in the UAE as an entrepreneur herself with her husband. And they set up a small business here in the retail game. And so when I graduated in 99, she offered me my first job. I moved here in 99. I joined the family business. And after a few years, there was this self-centered argument that I had with myself, which was, am I in this position and do I have these responsibilities because of my skill or because of I'm the son of the boss, you know? And after a lot of back and forth and conversations, etc., we decided that it might be a good idea for me to try and see what I can do by myself out there. And that's how I landed my first job in the watch industry back in 2003. And my first job was given to me by two gentlemen. One is Mr. Christophe Niquez, one of my mentors, if not the mentor, who is now part of the board of the Ahmed Siddiqui & Sons group holding. And the other one was Benoit de Klerk, who is now the CEO of Zenith Watches, who was running the Richemont subsidiary. And I joined Baume & Mercier as a trainer because I came from the franchise world where you need to repeat the same recipe. And so you had to have a knack of repeating the same thing in a fun way and communicate to the teams what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and so on. When I joined Baume & Mercier as a trainer, I needed to be trained. So I didn't know anything about watches. And in my mind, so 2003, I'm 26 years old. Anyone paying more than $50 to get a watch is an idiot. and I mean,
Period, you know.
Period. Why? Because it tells you the time. That's all it does. It doesn't make coffee. It doesn't, it just tells you the time. And since there are options at $50, why would you go and pay $500, let alone $5,000 or $50,000, right? And so I go to Switzerland, to Geneva and then to Fribourg. I spend a week visiting the atelier, spending time with watchmakers, and we had this 3-day class with a master watchmaker who passed away, Allah yarhamu, since then. And he basically, through the theoretical classes, which lasted about a day and a half or 2 days, he explained how watchmaking birthed, where it came from, what's the relationship between math, physics, chemistry, how the Arabs were the first pioneers in watchmaking. We have when I say we, I'm considering myself, of course, Arab.
You are
but,
an Arab.
Yeah, but I mean, they have about 700 years ago figured out the mathematical equations. They figured out the alloys. They figured out the challenges, the elasticity of the spring in the watch. It needs to open and close at the same frequency all the time. How do you do that? I mean, there is no metal that does that. You need to invent the metal. So how do you go about that? So physics, chemistry, mathematics, all of that combined. And then you had another thing, which was politics and religion. Anyway, so this guy, so we had this 1.5 or 2 days of theoretical training, and then we are handed movements and we are asked to try different techniques of, polishing and beveling and whatever. And towards the end, we're given a pocket watch movement, a unitask movement. And the guy is like, all right, so you take the movement, you put it like this, you make sure that you have your screwdrivers here, and one by one, you put them in the order, and you remove them, and boom, voila, 53 components, and then you put them back together, voila. This fast, right? And then each one of us, we sit at our workstation, and it took us on average about 2 hours to do what he did in like half a minute.
Oh my God.
And that's where your respect for the skill
Yes.
starts building up, right? And so when I came back, I moved from, if you pay more than $50 for a watch, you're an idiot, to certain watches that Baume & Mercier was selling at $5,000, I would say that's not expensive enough.
Should be.
Because I started understanding and appreciating everything that goes into making a watch. And in that classroom in Fribourg, as we were doing that, I was telling myself, wouldn't it be cool someday to have your own watch brand? And then, you kill it right away. I'm not Swiss. I'm not living in Switzerland. I haven't trained as a watchmaker. I'm already too old. It's not going to happen. So you park the idea and you move on with your life.
Especially when you have bills to pay as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So you seek stability over pleasure in doing what you're doing,
Very true. So that's how I got into the watch industry. And 21 years later, here I am.
But it wasn't only one brand, right? You moved from one brand to another.
So yeah, as it so happened, Christophe was still is quite good friend with one of the stars of the industry, Mr. Max Busser, who I'm honored to call also a friend. And Max Busser at the time was running Harry Winston, the timepiece division out of Geneva. And Max offered Christophe the opportunity to set up the timepiece subsidiary in Dubai to look after the Middle East, which Christophe did. And as he was doing that, he told me, look, we make a good team. Why don't you tag along? And I did. And that's how I went to Harry Winston. And it was kind of a game changer because you move from a brand that is focused on how can I say,
mass
performance, mass sales, promotion,
more affordability as well.
Absolutely, and yet it's Baume & Mercier, since I've discovered the brand to this very day, is one of those brands that for some reason doesn't get popular with the watch crowd, and yet it offers one of the best value for money you can get.
Yes, I always, to be honest, I always question myself who buys it, because I am not because it's a very good watch. It's an extremely good watch, but out of the crowd of collectors around you and myself, you're not gonna find much pieces.
So, and when you do, they always have a sentimental or emotional value, because the way that I see it now in hindsight is that it's the kind of watch that people get at graduation from their parents. People get, I mean, if I were not in this industry and I were to gift a watch for my daughter's 16th birthday or for my son's graduation from high school, I would like to get him a nice Swiss watch with heritage that is mechanical. What choices would I have? And there are some great watches there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, true.
Longines is a great option. Tissot is a very good option. But if you want a little bit more upscale without reaching the tag and the omega, Baume & Mercier is in that sweet spot.
Yes,
you know?
yes, totally agree.
So I get to Harry Winston, and Harry Winston, I mean, when I received the sellout from, I don't know, from the Saudi market, which was our biggest market at the time, you get the sellout report at the end of every month. In Baume & Mercier, I would have hundreds of references that sold out. And my first sellout report, I received it from the Saudi partner, and there's only one page with only like 20 lines or 25 lines. I was like, shit, we're not doing good. So I go see Christophe, and I was like, well, Saudi is supposed to be our biggest market. He's like, it is. But only 23 or 24 watches sold. I was like, well,
That's a good
excellent.
month.
I was like, how do you mean? He was like, look at retail value. Look at the retail value. He was like, oh.
Yeah, I think
okay,
that's
no.
a very good month. 23 pieces. Yeah. So the business model is different. The targeted market is different. Offering is different.
The only common thing about those two is that both make watches. And that's it. It's without, looking down on anyone or looking up to anyone. It's just two different positioning. If you were to compare two cars, it's like, I don't know, how many cars does Toyota sell in a month versus Ferrari?
Yes.
The numbers don't match.
Yeah. It will never match as well.
But the value could.
Yes. Somehow, yes. This was your last corporate watch stop or no?
La, that means no. So I spent 4 years with Christophe in Harry Winston, 5 years in total with Boom. And then I was offered this incredible opportunity to set up the subsidiary for Roger Dubuis, which, to my shame, I had no idea who it was. Now keep in mind, this is 2007, 2008. Yes. There is no Instagram.
Facebook was
just being open to the public. And the idea was, okay, we're expanding. We need to open a subsidiary in Dubai to look after Middle East. Would you be interested? Roger Dubuis was in the process of being sold to the Richmond Group. Now, during that time, I did educate myself a little bit about the brand, and I really liked what I saw. I liked the creativity. I liked the watchmaking heritage of Monsieur Dubuis himself, although he was no longer in the picture.
But that time, the watches were good.
Actually, in my opinion, the Roger Dubuis had gone through 3 important phases.
Okay.
The first period is up to 2001, 2002 in terms of product, where Roger Dubuis was a fancy version of Patek. To me, at the time, what Roger Dubuis, the man, was doing was equivalent to what we can see today from the likes of Monsieur Dufour, Monsieur Balloir, Monsieur Coyon.
Yes.
He had the craft, he had the passion, and it wasn't commercial for him. Never was. Around that time, Mr. Carlos Diaz comes in to finance him and to grow the brand. Now, Carlos Diaz came from Frank Mueller, who was a huge marketing machine. I don't know if you recall the period 2003, 4, 5, how big Frank Mueller was. I mean, I remember seeing in watch exhibitions like the Bahrain Jewelry Arabia Fair or the Doha exhibition, people were queuing at the booth to try and get a watch. Anyways, so Mr. Diaz joined hands with Mr. Roger Dubuis, and he started implementing some of the marketing tricks that worked for Frank Mueller, and it worked. And so the brand was expanding quite rapidly. And Mr. Diaz's impact on the product was very noticeable. Mm-hmm. He started creating a lot more commercial pieces that were very popular, the Easy Diver, the Much More, the Excalibur. I personally, my taste, I didn't like them that much because, amongst other things, these were big watches. Now, keep in mind that the Royal Oak Offshore that was introduced in 1993 was called the Beast. It didn't work. Up until the late 90s, early 2000s, when you start seeing the Schwarzenegger and whatever other big hunk celebrities wore, and big watches were a thing, right?
Yes.
That's around the time Jacob & Co. showed up with the 5 time zone watch. And so Roger Dubuis was in that trend as well. And some brands, thankfully, didn't fall for that
Hype,
that momentary hype. I'm glad because I'm a huge fan of these, but I'm glad Patek didn't do that, Vacheron didn't do that,
Yes.
Lange didn't do that,
thankfully.
Jaeger didn't do that, Baume & Mercier didn't do that. Anyway, so back to my story. I understand that now the scope of the job changed and it's no longer create a subsidiary from the ground up, but join the Richmond Group's subsidiary and integrate Roger Dubuis within it, which was great because, you already have a support system in place. You don't need to hire an accountant. There's a finance team.
Yeah, it's a system which is going to be replicated, so it's easier.
And so in February of 2008, I joined Roger Dubuis, and for some legal reasons, whatever, I wasn't, the first 6 months of me joining the brand, I couldn't do any commercial action, which gave me a lot of time to learn a lot more about the brand, to discuss with partners, etc., etc. And the day I get the green light from the group to start working, and it was the day that Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Oh, okay.
Talk about perfect timing.
Wow.
So the global economy is about to go into mayhem, and I'm charged to start generating revenue of a brand that is relatively unknown, and that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, not the easiest task as well.
No, but I got lucky. I was working with fantastic people at headquarters. I had fantastic partners in the region. Honestly, I am blessed. I've had a great career thanks to all the people that I've met and worked with. And I'm forever grateful to them. And the 4 years at Roger Dubuis were extremely interesting. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. And I was able to start collecting watches around that time, and I was able to get some pretty nice pieces, and that was great. I do that again for 4 years, and I was chased by my retailer in Qatar, by the Al Fardan group, to come in and run the show for them, for their watch and jewelry division. So I moved to Qatar with my wife and son. We spent a year there, and despite everything that Mr. Al Fardan and his family have done to make sure that we were comfortable, that we were looked after, I mean, they spared no effort, not just expense, but effort, as in personal effort, to make sure that we were well looked after, that we were comfortable. But as they say, old habits die hard. The one thing that was the hardest for us was that we moved from a very active social life in Dubai, a great group of friends, colleagues, you name it, to a place where we virtually knew anyone.
Yeah, starting from the social life from scratch.
Yeah, and with a kid, it's tough. I went one day to Mr. Ali and I explained, I was like, look, I'm going through some challenges at home because we moved here. And he was like, I'll stop you right there. If you don't resign, I'll fire you. Your family comes first. Business comes second. Your family comes first. I would hate it if anyone's family got, hurt even a little bit because of a person's loyalty to my business.
Yeah.
So we moved back to Dubai, and actually it was him who helped me secure my next position, where he spoke with Mr. Fawaz Gruozi, another character and gentleman that I've had the luck to work with. So Fawaz is the founder of the Grisogono, a jewelry brand that also makes watches. I don't know if you recall, back in 2007, they won the Grand Prix de l'Horlogerie for a watch called Meccanico. It's a relatively big chunk, but it was a watch, and the complication was that the time is indicated in a digital way, like your Casio watch, you know, with mechanical devices.
Yes, it was like a 7-segment kind of look, like a digital.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So I joined the Grisogono. I opened their subsidiary here. We built a team. We looked after a business. We grew the brand. Again, kept working with historical retailers that I knew, and discovered some new retailers that I didn't know, who were all fantastic people. Honestly, it's an industry, when you're in it, emotional connections are quick to build, especially in this part of the world, and you make friends for life.
Ice is easily broken. Friends are easily made. It's a really fun environment to know people. You know?
It is. It really, really is. 2018, I was like, you know what? If not now, it's never going to happen. I should try and do my own thing. Because I've always had this fantasy that children naturally look up to their parents as heroes, right?
Of course.
And so if your dad is a lawyer and your mom is a doctor, chances are you're going to try to be one of those things. And my wife has a wonderful career in the luxury industry as well, in the watch and jewelry industry as well. And so we know a lot of people in common, and we do fairs together and whatever. But I wanted for my children to have another example other than corporate. And so I was like, let me be an entrepreneur. 2018, I leave the Grisogono and I work on this idea with my really good friend Andreas, and we develop an app for the luxury retail industry. I had noticed some pain points related to the lack of transformation, or the low rate of transformation from visitor to customer in luxury retail stores. And so we developed an app that we called Dynalux. And the idea was, if CRM is a KYC, know your customer, Dynalux is a KYA, know your audience. I won't tell you that Ahmad visited the store, but I'll tell you that a gentleman in his 30s of Egyptian origin, resident in Dubai, wearing this watch, has visited the store, and he spent 20 minutes with this salesperson, and he tried this shoes, and his size is 41. But I don't know his name. And so we would capture this data, we would put it all together, analyze it, and from it, after a certain period of time, you can extract certain trends and understand where are the low-hanging fruits in your business model that you can quickly fix and change or improve your conversion rate.
Because I come from a marketing background, right?
Okay.
These things are really fascinating to me somehow, beside watches, you know. But what I understood, that it was a very dynamic, very accurate retail audit tool, for example.
Absolutely.
Which is revolutionary somehow. You know, you do not get this kind of reports accurately, at least.
Exactly. And so we launched it in February of 2019. And very quickly we were able to get, again, because I come from the luxury industry and it's an industry where friends are loyal, doors got opened, and I was able to pitch this idea and the app to some people that I knew, some people that I didn't know. Most of them were like, you know what, let me give it a try. And I was giving a freemium for 1 or 2 months for people to try it out. And in our first year, we generated over $100,000 revenue. We had some of the big luxury brands using our app, getting value out of it. We were quite good, you know. And then COVID hits. With COVID, you know, you remember that time. It feels like just last year, but it was already 4 years ago.
Yes.
People got worried. People lost jobs. Malls
People
closed.
panicked as well.
People panicked, right? And so did we, of course. That was a tough time. I go in panic mode. I haven't been able to pay myself a salary for almost 2 years. I have a family to support, and I will forever be grateful to my wife, who, you know, she has a job, and she stepped up.
That was the time in which Magana started. But I know that there is a specific story, right?
So around that time, this is where I was getting at. Because I didn't have any revenue, I needed to raise funds, and that takes time. And so what I started doing is that all the watches that I have collected for so many years, and each one with a story, with a memory, several of whom were good deals. The secondary market was doing quite well towards the end of 2020, yes. Early 2021. And so I started selling them off, and I've built relationship with watch dealers here and there. And at the same time, as I was pitching to a watch retailer my app, he turns around and says, "Look, I have a bigger problem. I'm sitting on a huge inventory, and I need to liquidate. Would you know how to sell?" And I worked like a donkey, in the sense that donkeys are really hard workers.
Yeah. And do not get tired easily as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So I worked, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, putting together lists and chasing pictures and references and negotiating and whatever. But I was able, within 3 months, to help them liquidate about 1% of their inventory. And then somebody stepped up and bought the whole lot because it was too good to miss. So it allowed me to rebuild myself some financial health. It allowed this particular retailer to recoup some of their funds and finally get rid of those thousands of watches. Because I was doing that hardcore for 3 months and I was loving it, I called my co-founder, my actual co-founder of Dynalux, Andreas. Shout out to you, bro. I called him up. I was like, "You've noticed that I haven't been very active on the Dynalux front because I've been busy with this, and you know what? I love it more. I really do love it more. I come from watches. You come from retail audit. You stick to retail audit. I'll stick to watches. Give me €1, take my shares." I then started doing watches, so trading, basically buying and selling watches. And the summer of 2021, and this is a story you wanted. So in the summer of 2021, Michael, that entrepreneur friend that I spoke about earlier, invites us to spend a week in this beautiful holiday home he rented out in south of France, in Provence region. I'm with my wife, my children, my brother, my sister-in-law, my niece. And 2 or 3 days before we catch the train from Paris to go south, I'm walking in the street in Paris, t-shirt, jeans, sneakers. And like the idiot that I am, I'm holding my phone in front of me and walking and WhatsApping somebody. And on my wrist, I had a Rolex Daytona. And at some point, this is broad daylight, right? Somebody grabs my arm. I immediately understand my watch is about to get stolen. So I look at him, I pull away, and I start running in the opposite direction with my eyes on him to make sure that, he's not following. Yeah. All of this is happening in a split second, by the way, right?
Adrenaline rush, and that's it.
Wow, exactly. The fight or flight. I'm a flyer. I'm not a fighter. So I'm running right, and the guy froze for a second and then started running in the opposite direction. All right, I'm safe. I turn around. Shit, it's the end of the sidewalk. There's a car. I now fall flat on my face on the road, on the street. As I fall, a vehicle, probably a car, but could have been a bike, drove past my head, like 5-10 centimeters. That was scary. So I get up, People, ça va, monsieur, ça va? All good, no worry. As I stand and start walking away, I take my watch, put it back in my pocket, find a cafe, I sit down, I'm like, okay, what did you learn, you idiot? And that was the birth of Magana, because I had learned two things. The first is that you cannot wear a pricey, recognizable timepiece or handbag or whatever.
True.
In places like Paris, like
London.
London, some parts of Geneva, etc. You just can't.
No places like here, to be honest.
Alhamdulillah. The second thing that I have learned, and that was really the wake-up call, it was like, okay, if I did die right there and then, what was I leaving behind for my children? They would have gotten some memories, some, a nice watch collection, but that's it. And memories fade. I need, as an entrepreneur, I need to build something that can outlive me, but not just in terms of business, but also in terms of values. I need something to be a vehicle for me to transmit to my children the few principles of life that I believe in.
Let me pause you here because, as you know, I really want to stress on the whole values of the brand. And since this is going to be a 2-part episode, so let me pause you here. Thank you so much for joining us today. This episode is going to be available on YouTube and all the other podcast platforms. I hope you enjoy it, and please wait for part 2 with Omar and Magana. Thank you so much, and see you next time.